Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Man Fatemi. As we're getting into this next segment here, we're going to talk a little bit about the Indiana Pacers, one of the hottest teams, not only in the Eastern Conference, but in the NBA in general, with wins recently over the Cleveland Cavaliers last night, as well as the Nuggets and the Sacramento Kings. All three playoff teams, and then the Cleveland Cavaliers, obviously the number one seed in the Eastern Conference, the second best record in the NBA. Phenomenal team all year long. Been one of the most dominant teams in the NBA all year long. But a lot of this before I get into that, this 6-game win streak has brought them into contention with the New York Knicks, as I mentioned in the first segment. Only one game back now in the New York Knicks. Of course, the New York Knicks hold the season series tiebreaker over the Indiana Pacers with a 2-1 lead, but both teams really control their destiny here. The Knicks over both teams with 2 games to go. The Knicks playing the finish the season against the Cleveland Cavaliers as well as the Brooklyn Nets, and then the Indiana Pacers as well, finishing the season with the Orlando Magic and the Cleveland Cavaliers. But overall, this team has been phenomenal over this last few games or so. Over these last not only 6 games, over the last month or so, they've been one of the quiet, hot teams in the NBA. 7-3 in their last 10. Haliburton's averaging 18 points, 10 assists over these last 5 games. I mentioned it before the break. Tyrese Haliburton reminds me so much of like Magic Johnson-esque in terms of just a floor general, being able to facilitate the offense. Very much as a hybrid between a Chris Paul and a Magic Johnson. He doesn't play the defense that Magic Johnson does, but he definitely facilitates the offense and is more of an offensive guru due to his size, due to his build. You don't really see guys at his height playing the point guard position. You usually see him as a shooting guard or maybe a small forward. But Tyrese Haliburton is one of the best point guards in the NBA for sure. Absolutely, he's one of the most underrated point guards in the NBA, I'd say. And while there is an argument that sometimes he is inconsistent in the games that he is very young. He is not in his prime yet. He's barely 25 years of age at the moment. And B, when he gets his offensive game going with his ability to pass the ball, be able to facilitate this offense, be able to be unselfish, that's when the Indiana Pacers are at their best overall. But this team, like I mentioned, is one of the best teams in the NBA at the moment. They can beat anybody in the Eastern Conference. They're one of the dark horses as well to probably win the Eastern Conference. I'd say outside of the top 2 teams, I'd say it's them. If you're talking realistic, like in terms of experience, well coached, everything in general, take everything into account. The Pacers are probably your best bet outside of the top 2 seeds in the Eastern Conference to win it all, or to make it to the NBA Finals. There is an argument that the Pistons are better than them or can be better than them, but overall, it's the Indiana Pacers because of their experience making it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. While they did get swept by the Boston Celtics, every game coming down to the wire, being a close game, and it being the Boston Celtics experience basically being the deciding factor in most of those games. Every game was the Indiana Pacers were not out of any game. It was probably one of the closest season sweeps I've ever seen in terms of overall disparity and overall advantage in point differential. We remember for the game 1 going into overtime. Game 2 was another close game. Game 3, the Boston Celtics came back, and thanks to the Drew Holiday steal, obviously him being an NBA champion before coming to Boston played a role in that. And then game 4 obviously being what I like to call the Derek White game, where he went ballistic for 25 plus points. But Like I mentioned, they took going back to the Indiana Pacers. They took out the Cleveland Cavaliers last night, 114 to 112. Um, and like I mentioned again, with the Tyrese Haliburton facilitating this offense, 7 Pacers going into double figure scoring, having 10 plus points, with 2 of them going into 20 plus in Aaron Nesmith and Tyrese Haliburton. Nesmith with 22, Haliburton with 23. Overall, it was a phenomenal game between both teams. But this team they really control their own destiny in the Eastern Conference. They can knock off anybody. I think if they can avoid they're one of those teams that if they can avoid the Boston Celtics before the conference finals, which might be a little bit tough now, but if they can clinch that 3 seed, if they can catch the New York Knicks for the 3 seed, and they can avoid Boston in the second round, I think they can absolutely go on a run. I think they have all the will, they have all the strength of schedule, and they can absolutely do it. It's plain and simple. I think it's that black and white. With how much experience they gained last season, with the supporting cast that they have, not only coming back from last season, but adding this season with Andrew Nembhard, Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, Benedict Mathurin, Aaron Nesmith, of course Haliburton, T.J. McConnell, Obi Toppin. These guys, they have an incredibly, incredibly deep team. And I think their bench is incredibly underrated, and it's a big part of their success. When they're successful, when they're winning games, especially by deciding margins, it's their bench that's coming up crucial more time and time again. But overall, yeah, they have a very strong chance to catch the New York Knicks, I'd say, especially with the New York Knicks having to go up against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Both teams going up against the Cavs. The Pistons formerly hold a 2-1 series lead over the Cavs at the moment as well. They could beat them. There's a very strong chance that they can beat them, especially with the Cavs not really caring as much about the first round of the playoffs. They're already locked into the number 1 seed. They're resting a lot of guys: Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. A lot of these guys just not DeAndre Hunter. A lot of these guys, their whole starting lineup not playing. You see it with the Boston Celtics. You see it with the top teams in the Western Conference as well. Resting guys so they don't get injured, or just giving them a little bit of rest so if they have some nagging injuries that they're not really talking about or that they're playing through, they can get some extra rest to treat them so they can come back come playoff time and be more of themselves, be more or closer to 100% in general. But like I mentioned, the New York Knicks, I wouldn't pick the New York Knicks I'd pick the New York Knicks to probably clinch that 3 seed, especially with what I just mentioned about the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Knicks will have more urgency in that game against the Cavs to win that game in general. But yeah, they hold, if the Cavs can beat the Knicks in that game, which will be, I believe, Saturday. Let me check that really quick. Oh, no, they play today. Excuse me. They play today. In that game today, that game against the Nets will be Sunday. If they can knock off if they can knock off the Cavs, I think it's already gone. They clinch with a win. If the Cavs can knock off the Knicks in that game, not only does it make that game on Sunday even more crucial for both of these teams, it makes the Eastern Conference that much more interesting because it would set up a Knicks-Bucks matchup in the first round as well as a Pacers-Pistons matchup in the first round. But, of course, that's not 100%. 3 and 4 are up for grabs, are in contention right now. 5 and 6 are also in contention right now. They're not in contention together, but separately they are. In my next segment, we're going to take a look at the Milwaukee Bucks and Detroit Pistons. They have a season series coming up, back-to-back games against each other, which, if the Detroit Pistons can win both of these games, will give them the 5 seed, which will give them a I wouldn't call it an easier path in the Eastern Conference, but it'll allow them to avoid. They will set up a matchup against the Pacers. They'll get a matchup against the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and take a look at those two games. Be right back, guys.